We're going to welcome in a Super Bowl champ, former Pro Bowler, of course, CBS Sports Network, Compass Media, NFL analyst, Steve Beuerlein. You can find Steve on Twitter at Steve Beuerlein, and he joins us now. First off, thanks for joining, Steve. We appreciate you. We'll get to the NFL in a second, but your boys have a big game this weekend. Here comes USC. You got to bounce back after a tough loss at Louisville. Do you expect Notre Dame to do so?
Well, first off, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Always enjoyed coming on with you guys. Thank you very much. I don't have any doubt that we have a shot to beat USC. I mean, you saw what happened last week. USC almost got beat by Arizona. And so it shows that they're human. People are scoring a lot of points on them. I've been disappointed in my Irish so far to this point. In several ways, although I believe we can play with anybody. And now that we have what I would consider to be a real quarterback in Sam Hartman, although he has not, I don't think, played at the level that we really expect him to, at least recently. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I think most importantly is that they're not putting him into positions to be as good as he can be, I believe. And we can talk more about that if you'd like. But really, I think we should have beaten Ohio State. I was at that game. I thought we were the better team. And obviously, the loss last week was very disappointing, and one that I'm interested to see how we're going to come back and recover from that.
Steve, is Marcus Freeman the right guy for the job there?
I believe he is. My confidence really hasn't wavered. I said this last year, and I still believe it. He's such a young guy, and really no head coaching experience at any level. I think that he's doing an incredible job of leading that team, being accountable, taking it on his shoulders. He's coming out basically and admitting that he's not doing a good enough job, and his fellow coaches, they need to do a better job of getting the team prepared to get the team ready. I think situationally he's made some questionable decisions, and obviously we all know what happened with the 10 men on the field, 2 plays in a row against Ohio State. Those are mistakes that if it were a coach that were much more experienced, there would be no excuse for it. And I'm not saying there is an excuse for some of the things that have happened, but what I do like about Marcus is that he's stepping up and accepting accountability for it and putting it on his own shoulders. Now, obviously, there's going to be some patience eventually that will run out on that kind of stuff, and he's got to get those things in order, and I believe he will. But we all knew there were going to be some growing pains, and these are unfortunately growing pains that have cost us in pretty key situations so far this year. So,
Steve Beuerlein, CBS Sports Network's NFL Monday quarterback. Make sure you check that out. He was on the Eagles-Rams calls. We'll get to those two teams in just a second. We were just talking to somebody that had an article about Belichick and Kraft's relationship, and it might not be great right now, Steve. I want to ask you about Belichick and, of course, questions about the game passing him by. He's got a listless team right now. And then I want to get your take on Mac Jones, if you could, the quarterback.
Well, I think that's a very, very deep topic to get into. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with he and Kraft and all that stuff. I find it hard to believe that the game has passed him by, to borrow your quote there. They're just obviously a different team without number 12 back there. And there's been a lot of other changes as well. And maybe his age is catching up with him. Maybe he is not quite as sharp as he used to be, or maybe he's lost his fastball a little bit. I don't know. But I do know that having the right trigger man out there, the right quarterback, can hide a lot of problems and can make you look good in a lot of situations. And nobody knows that more than Bill Belichick. And they thought Mac Jones was the guy, and it's turned out to be that maybe that's not a given at this point. I really thought he was going to thrive under Bill O'Brien and thought that they were going to do a lot of good things, and we're going to see some significant growth out of Mac Jones this year. And the first game or two, I thought it was going in an acceptable fashion, but what's happened the last 3 weeks really is unacceptable, and he's obviously lost his confidence, not 100% sure what he's doing out there, and he doesn't have the physical ability to hide some of that stuff. He's not a great runner. He's not very overly mobile, and he doesn't have a great arm. And so he's got to beat you with his head. He's got to make good decisions. He's got to get the ball out on time and in the right spots, and he is not doing that right now. And I think it's because he's lost a lot of confidence. When a quarterback does that, when you lose your confidence, it's very hard to be successful.
Steve, C.J. Stroud's gotten off to a tremendous start. We've seen some other quarterbacks have hiccups along the way that are rookie or younger quarterbacks. From your estimation as a former quarterback who played 17 years, kind of break down from a percentage standpoint, how important is the coaching to a quarterback's success, the receivers, the offensive line, and then how much of that is on the quarterback himself and his ability in terms of what he can do?
Well, all those things come into play, and you'll see as time evolves here with C.J. Stroud and with Justin Fields and a lot of these other young quarterbacks, and we're specifically talking about C.J. Stroud, what you look for, if you're picked that highly as a quarterback, unless a team traded up to get you, an established good team traded up to get you, you're probably going into a bad situation or not a great situation. And I think that is understood to an extent. I don't think that many franchises draft a player that high and expect him to come in and turn the franchise around immediately. It's going to be a 2 to 3 year process normally. But what they look for is the signs, the growth, the flashes of, hey, this is what we saw in this guy, and this is why we're excited about him. And C.J. Stroud has shown that, week in and week out, even in the games where he hasn't played his best and they haven't come out with a victory. He's making plays. He's making throws. He's aggressive. He's confident. And he's going to make mistakes. Everybody knows that. But I think Houston has got a lot of reason to be excited about the quarterback they've got right now, because he's stepping out there and playing football like a big boy right now. And I think he doesn't, doesn't have any doubt in his mind that he belongs there, and he carries himself that way on the field, and that transfers and translates to his teammates, and that's all very, very positive for Houston.
Steve Beuerlein, Sharp Money. So, Steve, you had the Eagles at the Rams, so we know the Eagles and 49ers. Let's put them over here. But you had the Dolphins in week 1. Where do you have the Dolphins? Do you have them as a team that can compete with this Eagles team you just saw this past week?
Yeah, I do. I think they can compete with the Eagles for sure. I think the Dolphins can compete with anybody. It's going to come down, as it always does in the NFL in the big games. The quarterback is going to have to step up and make some plays to win the game. And we've seen Jalen Hurts do it at a very high level over the last couple of years. And we know that he's not going to be overwhelmed in the big game at the big moments. We're starting to see that out of Tua at this level now. He showed flashes of it last year before he started having the injury problems with the head trauma. But this year, the way he came out of the blocks, and I did the week 1 game against the Chargers, like you said, he was on fire. And Mike McDaniel really, I think, has found a comfort zone with what Tua likes to do, what he's comfortable with, where he's best. And then, of course, surrounding him with that kind of talent that he's got out there with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the running backs, A-Chain, or however you pronounce it. He's out, I know, now for a few weeks. But they've got a lot of talent on that football team. And they've got players on the defensive side, too. I expect this to be a really exciting game this week, and look forward to the overall matchup and watching the highlights when it's all said and done, because I think there's going to be a lot of them.
Steve, very quickly, we've got about a minute. The Cincinnati Bengals are 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. We as a show, as a collective, made a wager on the Bengals to get to the Super Bowl. Are we dead? Are we dumb? Or are we just taking the long shot and maybe there's some hope out there?
It was a free bet, Steve. It was a free bet.
I'll tell you what. If they didn't have Joe Burrow, and if he didn't show what he showed last week, as far as life in the ability to maybe get this thing turned around, I would say you're crazy. And the statistics don't lie. It shows the teams that are in that position that have started out at 0-3. There's a 1% chance they're going to make it to the playoffs. But with Joe Burrow, I think it can be done. If this team can get to somehow find its way to, 9 or even 10 wins and squeak into the playoffs, I don't think anybody is going to want anything to do with them, because that would mean that they've turned it around and that they're playing really well. And as we know, wild card teams can step in and find a way to get it done. It's happened many times in the past, and recently even it's happened. So, if Joe Burrow can get into the tournament, into the dance, you guys might have something there, and I wouldn't put it past them.
Okay, we like the confidence. Steve Beuerlein, CBS Sports, Compass Media, of course, on the calls, and CBS Sports Network's NFL Monday quarterback does a great job at Steve Beuerlein on Twitter. We'll talk to you next time, Steve. Thanks for the time today.
You got it, guys. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.